Hi everyone, Simon from the Horoma studio. Today we're going to have a look at this new image for a rendering teardown. So this is an image that was done for the Macintosh challenge by Fabio Pavelli, and it was inspired by Simon Stahlenhag images that I don't have here, but anyway, called We Have Bandwidth. So, as usual, I'll jump from topic to topic, so hopefully I'll cover everything. Sorry if I forget stuff, and sorry if it's a bit messy. So, well, if we look at the image overall, it is really cool. The atmosphere is nice, and like the quality of the image is really nice. The modeling, the texturing, etc. So, if we look at what makes the image work in terms of composition is that we have this area here with like a lot of detail and a lot of information that sort of relates back to this area here and this area here. So we have this sort of like triangle. Whoops. Actually, I'll put this sort of triangle here, which is a really good way of like placing your light and having this sort of like cycle, like when you look at the image, you're sort of like going in circle or whatever, and then you're noticing other details. Another thing that is quite clever in terms of composition is this thing, which helps because if you have like basically having like like contrast in the upper thing makes that your eye will come back to the image rather than like completely go off the screen, which is quite nice as well. In terms of colors, it is pretty simple. You have like this sort of neutral bluish thing. You have like a proper blue that is like in the halo here, and you have like much warmer colors here. So the color palette is really simple, but it's really efficient. And the gradients, thanks to the sort of environment fog that we have, is really interesting. If we look at, like just small details that I've noticed that were not annoying, but that I still noticed is that the cables here are not touching the floor anywhere, which is slightly like, it's nice because you get this sort of small shadows, like cast shadows, but still there's like a little bit too much of flying cables. One other thing that I found a bit weird is, well, basically, well, this is not a nice model. If we look at the keyboard here, you can see that there's like a lot of dirt maps and interesting worn out effects that are really nicely done and that I really like. And it really looks like the shitty keyboard that I have from like 20 years ago. So it's really convincing. And on the other hand, there's something weird happening with the dirt map of the Macintosh itself. And I don't know where it's coming from. There's two things. Is that the first is this sort of like radial thing that is not extremely natural. So I don't know what's the effect that was intended. And the other thing is that it stops, like the fall off is extremely like rough or whatever. Like you can see it just stops in like one line, bim, and then you have nothing. So it's a bit weird. It's kind of a shame. And you can see that it does like, I don't know, it's not the most convincing thing. And it's a bit weird because like even though like, as I was saying earlier, it's like just really details because from that distance you can't really notice it. But once you start putting your nose in the thing, you're like, yeah, why is this looking like that? This is really cool, like having the light coming from inside. This is, I guess it comes from the fact that the screen is like lighting both ways. So, but either way, this is really cool. The guy here, I think I'm not really a huge fan of. There's one thing is that usually what you do is that you put people in blur so that you, well, actually, I'm not sure like if it's supposed to catch more the attention, or like at least you suggest the idea of motion. But the thing is, like with all these like cables and blah 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 here in the sort of like robot constructing this one, you have this idea, you already have like motion in the image. And the thing is like it's sort of, I don't know, Basically, I think the issue I have is that this is all machine, and the only human here, which could be like a nice counterpart, but is done in a, is done in a way that I think is not really adding anything. Because literally, if we take this guy off, sorry. I'm doing a really poor job here, but you get the idea. I mean, is it really adding anything? I don't know. And I mean, in terms of storytelling, I think it's lacking a little bit too. So I would, if you were to add someone, I wouldn't have composed the image that way. Another thing I think, which is like slightly like still details, is that you have this sort of like composition, as I said, that works with these 3 elements. And I think this one is a little bit too much. So what I would do is not necessarily to delete it, but to at least, still trying to get used to this tablet. What am I doing? This, so just to put this one slightly further in the background, basically, so that you, this is not even what I'm trying to do. Anyway, so just so that basically in terms of weight in the composition, you would read basically these 2 more and this one slightly in the background. I think it would work probably better. Another thing I think that could be interesting is regarding the floor here, which lacks a little bit of, let's say, vibration or whatever. Because the thing is, if you look at the reflection here, you can see there's like nice reflection, but here they completely lost for some reason. So what I would do is to sort of, is to do something like that. And I think I could add a Gaussian blur just for the principle. Blur, Gaussian blur, like that. And then just paint this back. Something like this. It's actually way too much, but just to get like this sort of slight, slight information, a bit more vibration in this area here, because I think it's lacking a little the sort of yeah, something like that. Also, one thing that could be fun is that maybe there's a slight bump map that sort of gives this sort of slightly wavy thing that you get on linoleum, so that the reflection gets slightly more interesting. But beside that, this is really cool image, sorry. One thing also, I think, but this is, again, I don't know, is the, like, just a slight issue with the consistency of the texturing. I mean, some stuff are like super shiny, others are like completely dirty, and I think it would be nice to get like more consistency with this. So at least for like these like cups of coffees here, or this, or like the newspaper here that could be slightly more worn out, or maybe like, yeah, like more yellow or whatever. But beside that, I think it's a really convincing image. So yeah, great job. I think I'll stop here. I'm pretty sure I had nothing else to say. Just in terms of like lighting again, I wanted to like emphasize how like interesting this sort of effect, like the rim, like backlight with like the rim effect you get here, is really cool. And this is like a really good way to emphasize geometry. So this is really cleverly lit here. So yeah, great job. So yeah, hope you've learned some interesting potential stuff to think about when you do your next images, and I'll see you in the next teardown. Cheers, guys.